morning. My name is Mallory Fiorillo, and I'm a senior in the Animal Science BS department. Today I'm joined with Dr. Ben Weikert, interim department chair of the Animal Science program. In his spare time, Dr. Weikert enjoys breeding and showing his Australian Shepherds. He began breeding dogs in 2017 and participated in his first dog show in 2015. His passion has led to great success in the show ring, and he has earned an excellent reputation in the dog breeding industry. How are you doing today, Dr. Weikert?
I'm great, Mallory. I'm very flattered that you asked me to come and speak with you, so I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate that. I wanted to just start off by asking, how did you get involved in the dog breeding and show industry?
Really, my passion for animals started when I was a little kid. So even when I was 6 years old, I got a bunny rabbit for Easter and decided, oh, wouldn't it be cool to make some more bunny rabbits and see what types of colors or behaviors you got from crossbreeding different kinds. And so then my interest in animal breeding and in raising animals went into livestock, and now has kind of adapted in my adulthood, where I can't be a full-time livestock farmer and don't really want to be, into breeding companion animals and animals that are competitive. And that's really how I got into dogs, kind of spanning companion animals, livestock animals, and now into the dog world.
So it started pretty early.
It did start early. My twin brother and I have been breeding and raising animals together since we were little kids. And for some reason, when a lot of kids would go to the library and get like coloring books or picture books, we would get like the animal science book, even when we were little. So I remember when we were like 5, 6, 7, we would get this really thick sheep production book, and we really liked trying to decipher which breeds of sheep we would think would work well at our family's farm.
That's really interesting.
It is interesting and kind of weird.
How many dogs do you currently have right now?
I have 4 mature Australian Shepherds that live in our home, and we compete with them in various venues. I also have a mature Central Asian Shepherd that lives with our livestock and protects them. I live in Cooperstown, so about 20 miles from here, and we have a big coyote problem. So she's another dog interest of mine as well. And currently we have 2 litters of puppies. So we actually have 14 puppies at home as well. It is exciting and a little overwhelming.
Yes. And so personally for you, what methods of dog breeding do you use?
Well, because when you're breeding dogs for a particular goal or objective, there's only so many dogs within really the country or the world that can help you to achieve those outcomes you're looking for from a breeding.
Okay.
So we have had 4 litters of puppies, and all of them have been conceived by artificial insemination, whether that's from frozen semen or from fresh chilled semen that is shipped, unfortunately, generally across the country to us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we have used only artificial insemination methods to get dogs pregnant in the past. We have had a dog that has stayed with us, but we had to use artificial insemination methods anyway.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it seems like because we have such a particular goal and objective when we're breeding the dogs, that there's really not that many male dogs that really would be available for us to use in a more natural way.
Okay, yeah. And for your dogs in particular, what preparation needs to be done?
Sure. So there's a lot of work that happens in those first several years of life. We would never breed a dog that was not a champion. And so that means that they have to be an AKC champion, is what we try to achieve, which means that the dog has to be shown, it has to achieve 2 major wins, which in our breed is defeating like 17 to 21 individuals at a time, and has to accumulate a total of 15 points. So that takes, with Australian Shepherds, we've accomplished that in as little as like 2 or 3 months, but sometimes it's taken us closer to 6 or 8 months. once a dog is a champion, then you have to go and really do all of the health testing. So while our dogs are sires and dams are genetically tested for the full Australian Shepherd panel, which includes MDR1, DM, Collie Eye anomaly, all sorts of wild genetic disorders. We do also do a full panel of OFA testing, which is the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals.
Yes.
And we do their elbows and hips. We also do some testing on their patellas. We make sure that their hearts don't have a murmur, so we do go to a cardiac specialist. They are seen by a veterinarian that's able to give a report on their dentition. So do they have any extra teeth? Are they missing teeth? Do they have the correct bite?
Wow.
And then annually, our dogs are also examined and certified by an ophthalmologist, which is, of course, the eyes.
Yes.
So we make sure all of that work is done before we even consider breeding a dog.
Okay, so it must be expensive just to even get to that point where you could potentially breed a dog.
Yeah, and everyone does it differently, and I think in our other questions that we're going to be talking about, looking forward to talking more about that.
Okay.
But I think on average, there are thousands and thousands of dollars that are put into the preparation
Wow.
of a dog to, in my mind, one that is worthy of being bred.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. I didn't know any of the details that went into actually the testing, the ophthalmology, the
and
dental.
everybody does things differently, but we feel that if you're bringing a companion animal into the world, an animal that is meant to just be with people primarily, that you should not only have objectives when you're breeding, but you should also make sure that you're doing due diligence for that animal's health as you're bringing in a new generation.
Yes, that's an interesting perspective as well. So what supplies or training or background do you need in order to be a successful breeder?
I think that a lot of people in the dog world, which is different from the livestock or horse world, many of them will get a mentor within the dog community that will really help them in selecting and management styles and really advise them in what sorts of testing to do. With my twin brother and I having several relative degrees to animals, we've taken more of like a scientific approach.
Okay.
So we actually keep production records on the dogs. So, you have 6 puppies born and they weighed 11 ounces at birth. We weigh the puppies every single day until 2 weeks old.
Wow.
Yeah, so we do that for our own record keeping because you wouldn't want to breed a dog a second time if they didn't produce enough milk, etc., for their original litter.
Yes.
So most things I think that skills or things you need to do to prepare to breed dogs is you really need to have your dog's temperament evaluated. Your dog should be titled in some discipline. So while we focus our dogs on the conformation show ring, a lot of people focus their breeding efforts on sports like agility or obedience, or I raise Australian Shepherds, so we also do herding activities with them because that was their original intent. When you're going to bring a male dog, if you have a male dog that you're planning to live cover your girls with, you need to do additional testing like a brucellosis test, for instance. So a lot of that can be done with the advice of a veterinarian.
And just for clarification, what is live cover?
Live cover is when you're letting the dogs do what naturally would come. Yes. So that's how you conceive a litter.
Okay. And like we kind of touched on before, taking cost into account, what are the profit margins for breeding in the industry with all those vet bills and regulations that you need to follow?
We don't make any money on the dogs, and I think that if you were to make a large profit on a litter of dogs, that you're probably not doing it ethically.
Okay.
So if you are doing all of the training and titling, the health testing, the regular routine health care, and then you're also selling the puppies for a ethical amount of money, you really shouldn't be making a huge volume of money. Some people will breed their female 4 times in her lifetime. We only do it 3 times.
Okay.
I think if we bred our females for a 4th time, I think we would be profitable, but that doesn't really interest us.
That's interesting. So that would be in relation to like puppy mills or breeding just for profit. How many times would you say that they breed in comparison to you only breeding 3?
Sure. Well, a female dog comes in heat every 6 months on average, and I have heard of people, even that are show dog producers, that will breed every 6 months.
Wow.
We like to have at least a year gap because, we feel that the female dog, our dogs are not just puppy factories. They are our family and our pets. They live in our home. They sleep on our couch. So occasionally they eat our food. So we like to make sure that the females, although we've been very lucky that all of our girls seem to enjoy raising puppies, since they can't communicate how they're actually feeling, we like to give them a whole year to really recover and to just get back to themselves before even thinking about breeding them again. One of our females that currently has a litter is 6, and she has gone 2 years in between each litter.
And she was successful in breeding the next litter? Good. So we kind of touched on responsible versus irresponsible dog breeding in regards to how often you breed the dogs. What are some other key qualities that separate a responsible and an irresponsible breeding? For example, frequency of breeding, selecting dog breeds, etc.
I think a lot of people, especially nowadays where we're seeing so many designer breeds of dog that are really just hybrids of, let's say, a poodle and a golden retriever. You get that, everyone knows a golden doodle. Those dog breeds are hybridized to create this designer dog. And I think some irresponsible breeders, they are in the dog breeding business to create money, to line their own pockets
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, well, and some people wouldn't say that that is necessarily a wrong reason.
Okay.
Some people, I think, would say that animals have a place in our world and in our society. And I would say livestock animals do have a certain human need. So humans have a need for livestock animals in a particular capacity. I don't view the dogs as livestock. So I think that dogs, especially when you're breeding them, people that are crossbreeding dogs, it's not because you can show a golden doodle or you can preserve the history of a golden doodle. It really is just to promote profit. So I think people that are breeding dogs that are not registered, purebred, titled, and health tested dogs, I think that those people would potentially could be considered having some unethical practices or thoughts. I would say, though, that just like the livestock industry, dog breeders are faced with obstacles and challenges from different extremist organizations, just like a dairy farmer or a hog farmer would be. So I think that we need to recognize what ethical animal breeding is in all capacities.
That is an interesting perspective that I did not think of, but I appreciate you elaborating on how you could see companion animals versus livestock and how your own personal opinion can affect what you consider ethical in the industry.
Absolutely.
For sure. Could you elaborate on some personal stories or experience that you have with irresponsible dog breeding?
Sure. We grew up, my twin brother and I, our family, were originally from southern Pennsylvania. And in my area growing up, pretty much everybody got a puppy or a family dog from a puppy mill in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, which is like the puppy mill capital of the world.
Oh, really?
And growing up, we didn't know any better. Our dad, we would have a family dog, and our dogs would get old, and unfortunately they would pass away, and our dad would bring home a new puppy home from work. And oftentimes, I didn't know this, and my parents didn't really know any better, but oftentimes they came from a puppy mill. So our final dog, that our family dog, was a boxer, and her name was Tony, and she had alopecia and also developed cancer at age 7. Okay. So she only lived to be 8 years old.
Wow.
Now, boxers don't live a long time to begin with because of multiple, mostly genetic related health concerns that they have. But Tony was a real she had a lot of health problems for not being a very old dog. And then that was in my, when I was probably 12 or 13, we started to really make those connections between healthy animals and getting puppies from a commercial dog breeder.
Okay.
So I would say that's pretty much my most direct experience with what I would consider to be not the most responsible type of dog breeding.
Yes. And how do you think that experience as a child impacted your practices as a dog breeder today?
Well, I certainly think that we try to layer on as much testing and practical health care as we can for the dogs.
Okay.
So we would never breed a dog. For instance, Australian Shepherds have a lot of genetic related eye problems or heart problems, things like that. We would never breed a dog that would have had a history of those problems. We have had puppies that we have bred that have had some minor health problems that we provide a lifetime of support for their owners.
Really?
So in our contract, if a dog owner is not happy or pleased with their puppy, they legally have to return it to us, and so that we can find them a more appropriate home. Some of our dogs have had minor health problems that we've provided their owners with the correct guidance.
Okay.
And I think that's also a sign of an ethical breeder, is that you provide support for that dog's lifetime.
That is awesome. That is a really good.
I don't know if it's awesome. I just think that that's what makes sense when you're breeding dogs. You could go to a shelter and get a dog.
That's true.
You should, if you want to buy a purebred dog from someone and write a check for that dog, it should be because the dog has been bred with a purpose, its parents have been totally health tested, and you'd like to think, although there's 1,000,001 factors, that that dog's outcome will be a predictable one. And that, I think, is a big thing that we try to achieve.
Awesome. So based on some research that I did, according to New York state law, you must be licensed as a pet dealer if you engage in the sale of 25 dogs and or cats born and raised on your premise per year to the public. Do you believe this regulation is effective, or should it be revised?
I'm not sure how effective it is, because I'm not sure how it's enforced.
Okay.
However, I don't think that people should be raising 25 plus kittens or puppies without having some checks and balances on an annual basis.
Yes.
I've been breeding and showing dogs since the mid 2010s, and I've never even had 25 dogs.
Okay.
So we've had our total puppies that we have ever had is now 24.
Just
and
below.
I've been doing it for 6 years.
Yes.
So I think on an annual basis, I think that law makes a lot of sense.
Okay. And do you believe that dog breeding should be more regulated in the United States?
That's an interesting question, because it is much more regulated in Europe. And we have some puppies that we have bred that are that live in Europe and are owned by European owners that show them in Europe and Asia. So they have so many restrictions that I think that it makes dog breeding much more challenging, that isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yes.
So Mallory, I guess to better answer your question is I think that would, having that law or more laws in place about breeding companion animals like dogs and cats, I think that is very contextual. I think it depends on the situation.
Okay. And earlier in the interview, we talked about how you like to look for a dog that is AKC certified.
Yeah, AKC champion, and then we have a whole bunch of other stuff.
Okay. So, and that, like, you said they needed a certain amount of wins in the show ring.
Mm-hmm.
Did that kind of, it's also, you were interested in the show ring, and they kind of tie together. Which one came first, the interest in dog breeding, which led to show ring?
I would say it was actually the opposite. So
Okay.
growing up, we showed sheep and cattle, and we really enjoyed that, we being my twin brother and I. Mm-hmm. And when we were in college, we were able to use our experience with livestock judging and livestock showing in 4-H, and we were happy and thankful and worked really hard, and we were able to generate that into a real livestock company that generated multiple champion animals at the national level.
Wow.
So I got my first dog, Allie, which many of you on campus have met
Mm-hmm.
before, after years of researching Australian Shepherd pedigrees, temperament, health needs. And when I had seen Allie's litter announcement, I just knew that was exactly what I was looking for. So Allie was selected because of her temperament, but also because she fit the breed standard.
Okay.
So I would not have gotten into dogs without having a dog that met the breed standard for the show ring.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense. So what traits do you focus on when looking to breed dogs for agility?
Okay. Allie, the one I was just talking about, she's a couch potato. So she has had a progeny or offspring that have done extremely well as show dogs. She have had some that have been rally or obedience dogs,
Okay.
but hers are all pretty laid back for agility. So a dog for agility, which we have done some, not as competitively as some of the other venues.
Okay.
Generally one that has more drive and motivation. One that's also more toy or play motivated. Most of our dogs, being former show dogs or current show dogs, their motivation is food.
Okay, yes.
So a dog that is play motivated and active, and one that finds joy in like a teamwork setting, are the ones that are the easiest to train for an active sport like agility.
Okay. And how do you believe dog breeding and dog agility are related?
I have some friends that breed dogs not for conformation for the show ring, but they breed them for agility and other competitive sport purposes. So I think that breeding a dog ethically can be done. You don't have to have a international show champion. As long as you are breeding a dog with purpose and a goal in mind, like having an agility winner or being able to compete and have fun in agility, then I think that's ethical too. So I think people that are breeding dogs with a purpose, whether that be for agility or whether it be for the conformation ring, I think that you can really use skills and select animals that can meet those goals in an ethical way.
Okay. Well, that is all I had for you today. I wanted to thank you, Dr. Weikert, for coming in and
Thank you,
joining
Mallory.
me today.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all your insight on the dog breeding and show ring arena.
Yes, I appreciate all the wonderful questions, and this has been fun, so thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.